Hi, this is Deb. I'm going to show you how we set up our Wacom tablet settings to work with Photoshop Elements 2022. First of all, make sure you have Photoshop Elements 2022 open. And then open your Wacom tablet settings. The first thing I want you to do is check to see if you have the latest driver. So go to Updates and make sure your driver is up to date. If it isn't, click on the Update button and you will be prompted to update your driver, and then you'll have to restart your computer. If you have to restart your computer, be sure to open Elements 2022 again. Then go to the My Devices tab and click on your tablet. What we're going to show you how to set up is the pen settings. Click on the pen settings and a dialog box like this is going to open. What we've found works best is if you set up a specific group of settings to work with Photoshop Elements. To do that, you go down to this Application tab and you click on Plus and you choose the version of Photoshop Elements, in my case 2022, that you want to make settings for. When you click on it, the driver's going to know which version of Photoshop Elements and where it's located. Click OK. And then you'll have a tab here that'll be highlighted that says Photoshop ... I have several versions of Photoshop Elements, so I know that this one is the one for version 2022, the one that I'm working on now. The next thing I want you to do is go down to the Mapping button. And if you're using a Windows PC, check Use Windows Ink. So you want to have that button checked in the Photoshop settings. You can also set up what part of your monitor, or in my case monitors, 2 of them, are controlled by the tablet. So I want my tablet to go from the far left side of my first monitor over to the far right side of my second monitor. So that's what it does. If you have one monitor, it'll probably just be the one monitor, but you can set up portions of your screen or portions of the tablet area, but I just have mine set to full and full. And we also want to make sure that you're using the pen mode, because then the stylus works like a pen and not like a mouse. Okay, next go to your pen settings right here, and this sets up what pressure controls, or how hard you have to press to get the tablet to do anything. By default, it's set to the middle. If you have a lighter hand or a firmer hand, change the setting and see what happens. To customize it, you can go into this box here and you can start with a really light touch and see if you're getting a fine line, and then go to a firm touch. If your lightest touch is this, then you probably should go in and change it to firmer settings. I'll cancel this, increase that firmness, and let's test it out. If that feels good, then click OK. The other thing that you can change is the distance between clicking twice in order for the tablet to recognize it's a double click. So if you have trouble double clicking and getting the tablet to recognize that it's a double click instead of just 2 clicks, you can adjust the distance here. Some pens have a tilt sensitivity, which is just how much of an angle you use on the pen. And your stylus might have buttons on it. Mine has two, an upper button that I've set to double click and a lower button that I've set to right click. You can change those by clicking on the more arrow here. Just play with them and see what you like. Next, if your pen has an eraser, if your stylus has an eraser, you can set the pressure of the eraser here too. If it looks good, say OK. If you need to adjust it, slide the slider. You might have another options button. Mine allows me to hold the pen close to the tablet while I'm clicking the buttons on the stylus. So I don't actually have to touch the stylus to the Wacom tablet to do a right click. I can just hold it above and right click. But if you'd rather tap and click, then check that setting. When you're happy, click OK. And you've set up the tablet to work with Photoshop Elements 2022 in this case. The next thing I want you to do is close that button. Since you've taken the time to set up the pen and tablet the way you want, I suggest you back up those settings. So go to Backup Settings, click on Backup, and tell your computer where to place these settings. I tend to put it on my desktop, and I also name it with the date. Everything is now backed up. So if you have trouble with your tablet, you can always go in and restore these settings. If you have an operating system update, a lot of times your settings for your Wacom tablet will be set back to the default or mixed up or done. They won't work right. So if you have that problem, just go into Restore, click OK, and then navigate to where you saved that file. April 2022 backup, click Open, and follow the instructions. I'm going to cancel this. You can minimize your desktop center. And I'm back to Photoshop Elements 2022. Now when you use your brush, you can have the pressure that you use control different things. So under tablet settings, this is what the pressure controls. Right now I have size and opacity checked. You can see that in this brush diagram because it goes from a pointy light stroke to a medium stroke and then back to the pointy or small, less opaque stroke. So let's see how it works. If I touch very lightly, I get a light, small line, and as I go harder, it becomes more opaque and smaller. So hard pressure is black and large, and light pressure is somewhat transparent and small. Of course, you don't have to control the opacity with it. You can have that tablet setting set to size, close the box, and then you'll notice that that brush tip changed from being slightly transparent to solid black, but small to large to small. So small to large to small. If I turn off the size and close that box, then my brush has the typical rounded beginnings and ends because my brush is round. No matter how hard I press or how soft I press, the line is the same width. So remember, tablet settings determine what your pressure controls. So I could have it just control opacity. Notice this didn't change. I have to close this box or tap somewhere in the toolbar for that change to take effect. So now my brush is going to always be the same width, but it's going to be either lighter or darker depending on my pressure. There are other options, such as scatter. Let's uncheck opacity. Remember, to get this change to take effect, you have to either close the box with an X or click somewhere here to make the box close. So let's see what happens. This just looks like a regular line to me. I don't notice anything that I would consider scatter. Sometimes to make a pressure change, you also have to change the brush settings. So in the brush settings, I would have to make scatter something other than 0. And now you can see this changed. So if I press lightly, the blobs are kind of close together, and the harder I press, the further apart they are. So remember, if you check one of these other things like hue, jitter, or roundness, you might have to also change the brush settings to something other than 0. We hope this has answered a few of your questions and maybe eliminated some frustration. So now take some time and have fun drawing.